I saw End of Evangelion on Sunday. It's an anime movie from '96. Don't ask me why they released it 18 years or 30, like 2 years before like the 30th anniversary. No fucking clue whose thought process that was about. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and then this guy comes in. He's in my room. Like, okay, if someone was gonna sit next to me, I knew it. The seat was sold. He sits down and then he just looks at me, and he says hello. And the first thing that crosses my mind is, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to go to one of the later showings. Because this guy now wants to talk to me. I was like, I could just leave right now. But no, he was just like, yeah, have you seen this before? I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, how many times? I'm like, oh, fuck, no, he knows too much already. I'm like, I've only seen it once, but I've seen the show a couple times. Like, okay. And then he just stopped. I'm like, are we cool or do I got to get up? I'm like, do I have to flee? And then he like turned around and I thought he knew the person behind me because I thought he said hello and then a name, but he did it twice and no one responded. So then I got real worried again. Then he was not going to talk to me more.
Yep, you're the only
and I was
friend.
like, fuck, no, fuck. I'm not here to make friends.
So how was the later show?
I wish. I was actually tempted to go see Dune again afterwards because it ended like probably like 20-30 minutes before the next XD showing at Dune.
Oh, you could.
That was real tempted.
Yeah.
Yeah. To double feature it, so I could see Dune thrice. Oh, I was saying the guy next to me also bought the Slimer popcorn bucket, like a different guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you had a Slimer popcorn bucket and Chatty Cathy.
And a friendly person, yes. Had a nice person that was there to make a small conversation before the lights went out. And it terrified me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Brian Guy and his Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is the Bene Gesserit's boy toy, Andy Stolz.
What's up, podcast people?
The Harkonnen heartthrob, Mike Bradley.
What the fuck do I gotta be the Harkonnen?
And he's my Dune dude, Ian Leidick.
I have ridden the mighty moonworm.
Okay.
It's a Futurama reference.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that
Someone is supposed to say good for him afterwards, but no one.
Good for him.
And I thought you were being real nice to Mike. I was like, a heartthrob's a good one. And then I was like, oh, a Harkonnen heartthrob. Yeah. Aw.
Yeah, even Harkonnen heartthrobs are pasty white, pale, bald. It's not good.
No. And like, worst case scenario, you're also a eunuch. That's...
Yeah. Although, I mean,
I was just going for the alliteration.
Would the ladies really
be
into it? You know, would the ladies really be into the eunuch? You know, you got to be a heartthrob. You know, maybe. I don't know. I would not put it past Dune to discuss whether or not women were into Harkonnen eunuchs at some point. I wouldn't put that past them.
Hey, Brian, what do you think Harkonnen heartthrob eunuch consent laws are?
I don't know. We're not going to go there.
How did we get here already? Like, we just started.
Thank you, Andy, for being the voice of reason on this episode already.
To be fair, I told Ian to get really weird with the Bene Gesserit stuff, and if you think that's weird for what Dune can get into, boy, have you got some surprises coming.
All right, so first off, before we get into this, I want to thank everyone again who showed up for the 300th episode that we did on my Twitch channel. We live streamed. It was a lot of fun. We did some Marvel trivia, so I hope you guys had fun watching and playing along with us. If you were in the chat, I put a link to the full stream on our Facebook page. If you want to check it out, that's still up on my Twitch page. I saved it enough where it should be there forever. So if you ever want to come back to it and watch it later, it'll be there. Audio only version that we've done is also out now. So if that is your preference, you can just listen and not see the visuals with it. If you go back and watch the stream that we did, I think at least 2 hours-ish, I think, for the episode, and then hung around for like a little bit of a post show for the stream, which I didn't include in the audio version. So if you want to see what we did, post show, chat a little bit, and just kind of hung out a little bit more. That is on the Twitch VOD from the episode. And again, I know I keep saying it every time I bring up Twitch, but I have every intention of trying to stream a little bit more and get back to BioShock because that's still on my to-do list. So feel free to check out my Twitch channel. It's Jedi Bry Guy on Twitch. Give it a follow. Next time I go live, it'll be there. Next time we try to do a live podcast episode, it'll be there. So yeah, just check it out and keep your eye on the page for whenever something comes out of it. I'll go around because I think you guys probably have some stuff to plug. So, Mike, you got anything you want to plug on your end?
Yeah, I'm streaming a lot lately. I'm trying to do it every day again if I can. The people hearing this won't know that tomorrow I won't be live, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, trying to do every day. And that's over at Rare Achievements. Twitch.tv/Rare Achievements. You can follow there. And check out what we've been doing. We're playing a lot of Destiny 1 again to kind of relive the old game before the final expansion of Destiny comes out. Perhaps the final one ever. Who knows? They really don't tell us a whole lot. But the last one of this era of 10 years of Destiny. So yeah, just about ready to start raiding in Destiny 1 again. So that should be fun.
Oh, man. All right. Andy, anything to plug?
Yeah, I was me and a buddy are still working on a video game named Dreeg, Melted Monster Games. You can check out Dreeg on Steam. You can wishlist it. The demo should be available relatively soon. Hoping by summerish.
Nice.
So I've been streaming Dreeg playtests.
Oh, nice.
I've done it once, so that's. I don't know if it was fun or not, but I did do it, and there is a VOD for that. It's twitch.tv/thedruid79, and you can check out Melted Monster merch and stuff on meltedmonstergames.com.
You should spell the Druid.
THEDREWID.
It's like
79. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ian, anything to plug?
In November, I'm going to be seeing Iron Maiden. Come check me out there.
Find you at the show.
Are you going to Iron Maiden? I was really thinking about going.
Yeah, down at the PPG place or arena or whatever the fuck they call it.
I'll be that dude
real
that sits down next to you, Ness. Have you ever seen these guys before?
I was going to say, I like how you just talked about not wanting to find random people at things, and then you're just like advertising yourself to be a
Hey,
random
if you
people.
find me, at least they'll be like, hey, I know you from that show. I'm like, oh, fuck. I don't have any googly eyes.
That is a 1 in a million shot, but I would love it if that happened.
I'll let you know when the bassist says, oh, dude, I love you on that fucking show. That's my Steve Harris, if anyone was wondering.
Wow.
Right? That's a good one.
That was spot on.
Yeah. I got that now, and I can now do the Departed voice.
Wait, the
The
Departed
Departed?
voice?
Yeah, I could do any character in The Departed.
Oh, just
Here
like
it is.
Boston accent.
Departed, go fuck yourself. Boom.
Are you a
Every
co-op?
character.
All right, so we're here to talk about Dune Part 2. As we normally do for our movie reviews, we'll talk about some stats, some general spoiler-free discussion, and then we'll get to spoilers and get a little bit deeper into the movie. Dune Part 2 is the sequel to 2021's Dune, brings back all the major players, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, and then it also adds a few new ones, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Lea Seydoux, and Christopher Walken. Danny V's back to direct, and also helped write the screenplay with John Spaeth. Dune Part 2 had a domestic opening weekend. Actually, I'll let you guys guess. Anybody know what it made? Opening weekend domestic.
I already know. So.
All right, Ian's excused. Any guesses?
Just domestic. How long ago is this now? I'm trying to.
Dune Part 2 is the one that just came out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a month, maybe. 3 weeks.
No, beginning of March, I think, was the first.
Yeah, so
weekend.
maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just trying to think. Like it's probably, let's go 110.
All right,
domestic.
Andy, you got a guess for opening domestic for Dune?
107.5.
No. $83. It came under $83 million was domestic opening, which is actually double what the first film made. First film made $41 million domestic opening.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Actually, I feel like that's really high considering the first one I didn't even go to a theater for.
Yeah, because the
it
first
just
one was
released day and
available
date.
on HBO Max at the time, with their whole we're gonna put everything for the next year out day and date on HBO Max. This is one of the last movies that came out. I think during that
Yeah.
stretch.
I think it was the last.
Yeah, and it was right
Either
around
that or Kong vs. Godzilla.
and right around
can't
too
remember.
when films were trying to get back into theater. I think Dune 1 helped with that a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So a little after 2 weeks, the film was about to cross 500 million worldwide. So it is making bank right now.
That is now the best box office total ever for Dennis Villanueva,
Oh, nice.
beating his previous tie of Dune Part 1.
Yeah. So Dune Part 1's worldwide total was 434 million. So
That's
not
really
too
not
shabby.
bad for releasing at home. That's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for maybe a little over 2 weeks, getting just about 500 million, that's pretty damn good too. So I think this is on the way.
I mean, I think that speaks to how good the first film was.
Yeah, it definitely, I
mean-
think, got a following and an audience from part 1 to part 2 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that surprised me, any guesses on budget for part 1 and part 2?
Combined.
Combined or
No,
separate?
just separate for each movie.
Okay. Is it the same number?
No, they were different. 2
Okay.
was still was more money than part 1. But what do you think it cost to make these movies?
Part 1, 175 million. Part 2, 210.
Okay. Andy?
I was gonna go 150 and 200.
Ian, do you have a guess or do you know this too?
I don't know this. 140 and 180.
Okay, I've already lost track of the math in my head. I think Mike was closest for part 1. It was 165 million. I think you said 170.
Yeah, I said 175, but
Okay.
that's still closest.
Part 2 was at 190 million. So it did not even cross the 200 million mark to make the movie, which to me, making 2 of these movies for under $200 million each, I think is very impressive.
And they weren't shot back to back or anything
Yeah.
where you would save money.
Yeah. So I think that's really, really good. Testament to them.
Especially with the cast they have.
And the
In both of
effects.
these
Like, I
movies.
think the effects are really, really good too.
They seem mostly practical too, so
Yeah, those are real
tends
worms.
tends to be tends to be more expensive, I think, right?
Yeah, probably.
I think it's relative almost. Like certain like computer generated effects are more expensive, but it also, I think, the volume you use them is where you really eat up a lot of the money.
Yeah, probably.
Like it all kind of depends. Like Zack Snyder,
Ratings for the movie right now, currently on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic rating is 92%. The audience rating is 95%. On Metacritic, it dips a little bit more. It has a Metascore of 79 and a user score of 8.4. So generally speaking, spoiler free again. Give us some thoughts on the movie. Andy, I'll start with you because you're coming off of viewing last night, so this is fresh.
Yeah, I saw it last night. I like these movies because they're very immersive. Feel like you're in the sand dunes with them doing the stuff.
Yeah.
Just the sound quality and the videography quality, the acting is all pretty top notch as well. So
Did you see it in any type of fancy theater or just regular theater?
Dolby Digital.
Okay, nice. Mike, general thoughts?
It felt like as smooth a natural continuation from the first movie as possible. Like there was, and it was kind of filmed that way intentionally, where there was not really a gap between the end of the first movie and the beginning of this one. That was a good thing. Like
Yeah.
it just kind of picked up right where it left off. And that was very welcome because all too often, I don't know, sequels can not have that happen, where it seems like disjointed in some way or like some major gap was there where it was like, oh man,
Yeah.
how did we get here? And yeah, it's some of the best videography I think I've ever seen in a movie. Some of the shots, angles, things that Denis Villeneuve is pulling off here show why he's become this gold standard lately. Same with the sound design, of course, just like the first time around. Um, I feel like some of the acting was only okay, and others were absolutely fantastic. We'll get into that later when we talk spoilers. I don't want to get too in depth right now. And yeah, I mean, in general, I'd rate it just as highly as the first one. They feel like one cohesive unit of a story. Like, it doesn't feel like a different movie to me. I feel like I'm watching just a long movie.
Yeah. Ian, what do you think?
So I've read this book twice now. And when I saw the movie for the second time, I was still getting goosebumps in the theater, even though I knew from reading the books what was happening, and I had literally already seen it a week ago. And I think a movie like that still makes you feel on repeat viewings is something special. I agree with Mike. I think for me, Zendaya was kind of a weak point acting wise. Not like she completely detracted, but there's at least one specific scene I can think of where I was like, "Oh fuck, this is a movie." You know, like when you like it kind of takes you out of it. But like you've all said, I think the videography, the directing is just masterful. There's some of the most like breathtaking scenes I've ever seen, and the music like just blends in perfectly. I felt like with the visuals, and it was like in the Dolby, like moving along like I was riding a fucking worm. Like it just is special.
So how did you do both your Was it? I know one was Dolby. Did you do both your viewings in Dolby or?
Cinemark XD for the second one.
Okay.
So bigger screen. For our, like the Dolby we have, I think locally, I think the screen's bigger in the XD, but it doesn't have the soundscape like as good of a sound setup.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious
neither
if
of them
you
are in that like special 1.4324557 aspect ratio that they have at King of Prussia.
Yeah, I was curious if you made your way to IMAX for it at all.
No,
Okay.
I thought about moving now to one of the special IMAX screens that there's like 10 of in the country. But then I was like, well, they're never gonna release Dune again, so why bother?
You know
Why
that
bother?
if they got that special IMAX screen, Dune's a big draw for that. You know.
I just I guess I just meant for the first time again. But yeah,
Yeah,
no.
I know.
I would at least take the trip out for Dune, maybe.
And I mean, I saw a funny thing actually. Speaking of the IMAX screens, that somebody took a picture of from their front row seat in the IMAX of Florence Pugh's face up on the screen. It's just such a horrible angle. And it was like, wow, they make people pay to sit there. They should just take the seats out. Like those seats that are too close to IMAX, just get rid of them.
Oh god, I vividly remember seeing Iron Man 3, and I was trying to meet some buddies after work, and the one guy bailed on me, and it was just me sitting there, and I was frantically trying to find somebody else to go. I was texting my other buddy at work, like, "Hey, the other dude bailed. I know you're living close to the theater. Can you just meet me and we'll go?" So he met me, but by that time the movie had basically already started. So we went into the IMAX. It was in 3D, and we're literally the only seats left were front row. And that was back, when they didn't have assigned seating, so you're just whatever's left when you go in. And yeah, that was a fucking the movie. I mean, movie was fine, but yeah, the view of that screen from front row, looking straight up in a 3D movie, was fucking terrible.
I don't know why they leave those there. Like, why do they? I know they want to sell them, but add them at the back. Don't add them at the front. Like,
yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see if they redesign theaters ever. But yeah, I guess for me, I echo a lot of what these guys said. I thought the acting was pretty good. I don't remember having a problem with Zendaya, so maybe we'll have to talk about what
I did
part you're referring to because I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I feel like I can clarify a bit for myself before we get into spoilers on that.
Okay.
If you would like.
Yeah.
I've seen her in quite a few movies now, and I feel like she plays the exact same character in every one. That was my main issue. Is like every time I see her, I feel like I'm seeing the same character. I'm not seeing a different character.
Yeah, I guess I could see that.
And
I don't know. It's still fine. I guess
that's my main issue. Is it's just not identifying like a difference for me between her character here and her character in Spider-Man. It's
Yeah.
like you could interchange the attitude, the demeanor, the lines, and I'd be like, okay, just change the names, and it's believable in both for the way that she played it.
Gotcha.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of the cast did really good. Austin Butler, I thought, was in a sense like unrecognizable, but just like creepy as fuck. Like that dude sold that role very well. Javier Bardem made me laugh a good bit in this movie. And yeah, cinematography and direction, like Denny V directs the shit out of these movies. And there's just something to be said. Like his filmography is getting up there for me. Like I know a couple of his movies have hit like my top 10s. This will probably, it's still early in the year, but like this has a good chance to be in my top 5 for the year. We'll see what else comes out, but I don't want to say it's number 1, but it's holding towards the top spot, I think, right now. But yeah, I liked a lot of his stuff. Hoping they eventually get to a part 3. I think the movie kind of leaves it open a little bit where you're set up thinking this could be a trilogy, but I haven't heard them talk about a trilogy, so I'm just crossing my fingers that they continue the story and see where we go. I think my only gripe with it was some of the editing and pacing kind of threw me off. There's certain transitions and stuff that I felt like there was just gaps there, and it took me a little bit to kind of get my feet under me with like, okay, how do we get here? What's going on? Maybe how much time has even passed? Because like that's varies throughout the movie too. And it's pushing what 2 hours and 45 minutes or something, 2:30 at least.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would have been fine with a 3-hour movie if it bridged some of those gaps for me and just helped with some of the transitions. I think I would have liked it more. But yeah, that's all I have for that one. Either way, I think, generally speaking, I think we all really dug the movie. So if you're interested, if you've seen part 1 for sure, definitely do yourself a favor and go check out part 2. These are the type of movies that are made to be seen in the biggest, loudest screen you can find. As much as people like to wait for digital or home video or something, like I'd still highly recommend getting your ass to the theater and checking this thing out. But last call for any general spoiler-free stuff, or we'll get into the spoiler stuff. Anything? Okay. All right, so with that, we'll move to spoilers. If you haven't seen Dune Part 2 and do not want spoiled, pause this now, come back after you've seen the film. Otherwise, if you're, into that sort of thing, keep listening, and we'll be sure to spoil some of the best moments for you. Either way, spoilers to follow.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so we are into spoiler territory. So, granted, I don't really know. This might be a little bit more of like a free-form discussion because I don't really have too much stuff written down for this. But as someone who hasn't read the books, I don't think I realized that Paul Atreides' story is basically Anakin Skywalker. And by the end of the movie, I wasn't really sure if I should be rooting for him or not, or if it was meant to be like, I don't know how I feel about this guy anymore. But I think talking to some people after the movie and reading about like reviews and stuff a little bit more, I guess you're really not supposed to be on his side, and he turns out to be the bad guy, which I kind of did not expect, so that kind of threw me. I thought that was kind of cool.
And see, and I guess there's part of that where he's not necessarily the bad guy; he's just not the good guy.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But it's mimics a lot of Anakin's story of being the one to fulfill this prophecy, and then doing that still kind of makes you, I guess, be the thing you're trying not to be.
I mean, and to be clear, his story came first, so Anakin's mimicking his.
Oh, I get that. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's my benchmark. Having knowing nothing about Dune, but knowing about Star Wars. That's my comparison.
Yeah, I gotcha. I just want anybody listening. I didn't want people thinking that we were saying like, oh yeah, no, they copied Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we weren't sounding that way. Go ahead.
I think that's one of the big differences between the book and the movie is his mother Jessica. In the movie, it's a lot more her spreading the tale of him and trying to convince everyone to follow Paul and that he is the chosen one. And in the book, it's not really like that. She's actually trying to at times prevent Paul from taking over and becoming Muad'Dib, like the God King.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't kind of want that for him because it's really about protecting her son is her goal, keeping alive the last thing she has of her husband that she loved with everything. So that's actually a big change in the movie, is Paul being the one kind of rejecting it. And that's why I was wondering if people would pick up that Paul's not really a good person. And I think that's part of like why they go into the whole, I'm a Harkonnen and I have to do Harkonnen things to win, is to try and beat that across you a little bit right there. To like, did you guys pick up on this? Because if not, here's the words. We're kind of going to just say it. And I think that's the key, is like, even though he's maybe better than the current Emperor, and he's probably better for Dune than the Harkonnens, a lot of people are still going to die at the end. And it's not kind of a good thing, maybe, that he took over.
Yeah.
For, like, in the grand scheme, is it better? I don't fucking know.
And I mean that's a moral question that Dune and I mean these movies themselves are going to raise, is, you know, is it better to allow subjugation in the name of peace, or to rise against it and deal with what happens? And it's a very gray area when you think about the morals of doing it, because yes, the morals of the people subjugating you are obviously wrong, but is it also wrong to then sacrifice people to end that? And it, you know, it sounds like the answer is yes, but it's not always.
Yeah. Andy, what'd you think? Surprising? Is that something you kind of knew was coming, or?
I did not know that sort of. I'd like to call it a turn, because I feel like he was definitely like the hero of the first one.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
to sort of see him flip a little bit, especially what the last scenes of the movie, you're like, wow, he's full blown, like he's in it now. You
Yeah.
know.
It's honestly, it's really like at that water of life scene is when he like changes.
Yeah.
Like it's before and after, kind of, is how the movie interprets it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's even I feel like even when they're heading towards the southern tribes, that he starts to veer off with the sandworm, I feel like even then he makes the conscious choice to fully embrace like the prophecy and stuff. Because even Zendaya is like looking over like, what's this fucker doing?
See, I was curious if you bring that up, because I know I talked to Brian after we had seen it, and he mentioned he didn't notice Paul had like broken off, so he was like confused, like when he ended up there, like no one else was there.
So here's
So I
my
was wondering if you
just
yeah.
my confusion is like, yes, I can see him veering off. What confused me was he didn't look like he was going any faster than everybody else, and yet he got there way before everybody else.
Well, he was
That
going a different place. He went a different
Yeah.
direction.
Oh, see, I assumed they were all
They
going to the
went
same
to
place.
like they went to a siege, like where they had started, but in the south, he went to like a special temple.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was
went
still
to a
under the
different
impression
place.
at that point that they were all going to the same spot, and that's why I was really confused. Why it looked like he might have went somewhat different direction, but still ended up the
Well-
same place everybody else did.
Yeah.
Because we never really see. Do we see Zendaya get to? No, I'm trying to remember. Do we see her
Yeah,
get to
on
the
the
other
Throther.
place? Okay.
No, they never show us. They don't show us anyone arriving at the actual siege they were all originally going to.
Because it's like we just see Paul get there, drink the stuff, have a seizure, and then she just shows up later, right?
Yeah.
I thought
So
the timing of those events was very odd. It was like hard to follow.
And that's, I think, part of the editing problem for me, where it's like if you somehow cut in there that she went to this other place and is looking around like, where's Paul? And he's not there. And then she realizes he went somewhere else, and then you cut to her going to him. That bridges the gap and makes sense to me.
Plus, someone warned her, right? Like someone told her when she was at the other place that this shit happened. Like
Yeah.
who told her? You know, like
Yeah.
who told
Well,
her to like.
his mom. But, like they just cut all that for timing and stuff.
Which is
No,
what I
there's
figured.
nothing major that happens. Like the thing, nothing major happens at the siege other than her being like, "Paul's not here." Oh, he totally went and did that, and then someone saying, "You've been summoned." You know.
It's like I understand they like it's little stuff, and I understand that's probably why they cut this stuff for time. Like I get it, but to me, it's just like I like the connective tissue of those types of scenes. It just makes my brain easier to follow things.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like there was one other issue I remember having with that was like tying in her ascendance to, you know, like the what's the name? It's been a few weeks.
Sorry, what do you mean her? Sorry, I'm just not sure which character.
Jessica, Paul's mother.
Yeah,
When she ascends to like the tribe,
The-
whatever.
the matron mother.
Matron mother. When she ascends to that, I felt like that all happened very fast for something that was, some sort of significant change in the power structure within their entire, colony or whatever you want to, like group of people. And it goes from her like drinking to having the visions and going through all of it, then realizing that they made a mistake because she's pregnant and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the next time we see her, she's like in charge of all these people. She's there as the matron
Well,
mother.
The small break where she's like resting in Paul's lap and he's explaining that it wasn't like a prophecy and this is just what the Baron Gesserit do with the poison. I think there's
Right.
that small recovery part. But I mean, that's kind of is how it happened. It's very quick. It's not a long process, but again, that's probably more of a timing thing than anything else trying to draw it out. Because we're talking right now, adding like another 10 minutes to this movie so far.
Oh, right.
You know?
And I fully understand that. It was just one of
Oh,
those
yeah.
things where I was like, man, that could have been fleshed out more, because she goes from like not knowing these people to being fully integrated and the matron mother
Mm-hmm.
with
Like, oh.
very little context in the movie.
I mean, I will say, I think part of that they try to explain it with her having all of the memories, so that's how she's able to instantly integrate herself. Is she now knows everything every matron mother they've ever had knows.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know.
Okay.
So for her, she's just
Yeah.
stepping into a role that literally almost is born into because now she knows everything about their history.
See, more than the Harkonnen doing Harkonnen things, that needed beat into my skull with actual dialogue. That was the thing. I would have got more use out of them beating that in for me, but I get it.
No, yeah, that's I think one of the things they skip over because the same thing happens to Paul. Is it's not that the special thing about the Kiswech Hatterich, the male version of the Baron Gesserit, is that with it he's able to see into the future, that precedent they mention, but he still has all those back memories too. But they don't really cover that stuff because it doesn't really drive the story forward. I think that's why they cut a lot of it. It helps play out to the whole themes and thematic stuff. But to get us in and out of a 2-hour and 45-minute movie that Warner Brothers Discovery will fund, we're getting rid of it, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there anything specific you guys want to touch on? Any talking points you guys got? Questions, observations?
I thought the
Yeah.
design choices for the fetus scenes was weird. It's
You mean
one of
like
the
how
first things
like
you
a-
see is you're just like watching this like fetus at the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, this is weird.
Welcome
then
to
they're-
Stories of the Bene Gesserit.
and they're covered in blue shit? Okay, is it dead? Like, yeah, no. Oh, it's talking to us. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
I-
it's
it
very
was
weird.
kind of off-putting, and I don't know that I super cared for it.
I've already forgotten that part, so that's
Yeah. That's one of the nice things about books is they can't show you a fetus.
Yeah, they can mention it, they can talk about it, but you don't have to see it. Yeah, I also find it funny that they signed Anya Taylor-Joy on for this movie for all of 10 seconds of screen time.
I guess I assumed that they were setting her up for an eventual sequel, like that.
Right,
mean,
and
that character
you did
has
mention
more to
like
do later.
They're writing it.
yeah, like
Okay.
Denny said that like he has enough in the bag basically for a third movie. Like he's ready to make another movie if they do it,
He
which
said
I'm sure
this
this will
would-
make enough money they'll do it.
He said script will be done by December.
Okay. Yeah, I was under the impression it was dependent on how much money this movie makes, and I think it's doing well enough that we should be able to
Yeah.
get the third one.
Depends on that and how many other movies they cancel between now and then.
How much can they write off from
Yeah.
canceling other movies?
Imagine how much they could save if they wrote off Dune 3.
Fucking WB. God damn it.
Could they save more than they would?
Someone
make?
would hack them and release it. I just know
No,
that already.
they would save the most money if they filmed it and then scrapped it. That's when
Yeah,
they would
somehow
save
that makes
the
more
most
sense.
amount of money.
Yeah.
Well, that's the biggest write-off is because then all the money is spent on an asset that they can't use, and so therefore they can write it off. So if they actually spend the whole budget, they could write off the whole budget.
Yeah, you remember that Sony hack a couple years ago where they hacked all their emails and shit? Like, do that to
And,
WB. Just give us all the movies they don't want to release, for God's sakes.
and all anyone cared about was the Spider-Man emails.
Yeah, that's not true. We did an episode back then on because there was all kinds of emails between Paul Feig and Amy Pascal about the
Yep.
fucking
I
Ghostbusters
remember doing
movie.
the podcast for that. Yeah.
And everything that they wrote back at, like, Paul Feig is giving her ideas like, this is what I want to do for the Ghostbusters movie. This is my vision. This is what I want to do. And we're reading it like, this is the stupidest fucking thing ever. And then you go see the movie.
Came to pass.
Yeah,
All
and you
of
realize
it
they
came
did
to
exactly
pass.
that. It's so fucking dumb.
He did what he said. He ain't
Yeah.
a liar.
But it's like, it's part of the reason I hate Amy Pascal and all the shit that she's involved in. Because it's like Paul Feig's feeding her this crap and she's going, oh, that sounds great, Paul. Yeah, let's do that. No! It's fucking stupid.
Well, that's what happens in the world when you have to be a yes man to people that have all this money that fund everything. Is you have to greenlight bad ideas for people, even though you disagree with them or you don't think it's the best idea, because they might fire you if you don't.
Yeah. Like,
And so
she's the
bad things
producer.
end up
Like,
happening.
fucking decide on better crap. I don't know. Anyway.
So
I'm not
Paul
sidetracked on
Atreides has this scene where he has to ride the worm as part of the coming of age ritual of the Fremen, and also that would theoretically makes him a Fremen by riding the worm. And I feel like that's one of the most impressive scenes I've ever seen. When he's running across the top of that sand dune, that literally giving me chills, and then it all starts crashing down as he like falls off into like a pit of nothingness, and then he just kind of hooks into a worm, and it's all dark and gritty, and the music's playing perfectly. It's some of the best things I've ever seen. I really enjoyed that scene the most. I
So,
think.
did you watch the trailers? Because they put that in the trailers.
No,
Not the
Okay.
whole thing, they didn't. They showed you it was going to happen. They didn't put, like, that whole experience in there.
I guess.
because
mean,
I also knew it was going to happen.
yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
true. That's true.
that's-
Yeah. I'm like, I think just, yeah, I'm just thinking back to like the one trailer I think I watched had that, at least I thought a good portion of that scene in there.
Oh,
But
maybe
yeah,
I didn't
that
watch
was-
that one.
It had to have been one of the earlier ones because I didn't watch the later ones. But yeah, but I agree. I think that scene was really, really cool. Really, really well done.
Yeah, seeing it in, like, the Dolby Theater, you could feel it. You
Oh,
could
yeah.
feel that scene, and it was... again, like you said, the sound design, all of it just worked so damn well in that moment to create that, like, you know, the sandworms are supposed to be these impossibly large things that are difficult for us to even fathom because they're, 10 times the size of the largest thing on Earth at least.
Unfilmable.
And yeah, like it's
They did it. They filmed it.
yeah, they actually captured, that
Like,
horror of jumping onto something like that, and
And,
also
like,
like the rush of it.
oh, I'm going to say this, skipping like towards the end too, like when they use the worms to attack the Sardaukar, like you feel like, oh, those guys are fucked.
Yeah.
Like you can just look at it like, oh shit.
Yeah,
And
there's
you
no
could,
artillery.
you could
gonna
tell
work.
that they're thinking the same thing because like 75% of them immediately retreat.
You're like,
Not
I got
that
a
it's gonna help
sword.
them, but at least
That thing's teeth are my size. Like, what do I do?
I also love that the internet gave us the most Ian image out of that whole scene of like the three sandworms coming out of the like that attack at the end of the movie, but somebody put googly eyes on all three of them. So I had to make sure I sent
haven't
that to
seen
Ian.
that.
I've seen it. I've seen that, and I've seen all the Wormussie pictures.
Oh boy.
Wormussie popcorn bucket.
Yeah, that.
Um,
Oh god.
I think, like you mentioned, Austin Butler really melding into the role. I think the Harkonnen homeworld, they filmed that whole arena fight scene in infrared. The way they try and use the sun of the Harkonnen homeworld to subtract color instead of adding it like it does in our normal human world. And it was so starkly different scene than anything else like I've seen in a long time. And the sheer paleness of everyone was so cool. And I think they did, because part of the reason they did it is they wanted to show we don't know a lot about the Harkonnen homeworld other than it's like super industrialized. So how do you make it the opposite of nature? I guess you take away all color. And it was just so cool looking, and fucking the design of the arena even itself is brutal. There was a Dune film they tried to make in 1975, Jabberwoski's Dune, and they got H.R. Grieger to do the concept art. And they actually ended up using that art for Alien because they couldn't film this because he went way over budget and he didn't even start filming yet. But they showed some designs of the Harkonnen homeworld like Rieger came up with, and these were close, but it's like, oh, this could have been so much more. So like that's to me like a weak part only because I know what it could have been, but I still think like that's what I mean though. It's still so well done, and I think that's the big thing about this adaptation is all of the challenges and things that made this film unfilmable. They just found a way, and it's really cool to see it just happen.
I really dug the black and white plasma fireworks that they were doing on the homeworld.
Oh, yeah,
I thought those were super cool. The noises they would make and the different designs in the sky.
Yeah, honestly, when the first one went off, I thought something was happening. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I was like, "What the hell?" And then it started to like realize, like, "Oh shit, that's fireworks." That's actually really fucking rad.
Another really like cool part, like I think it's I guess after we said that turn Paul makes to become like the evil, not evil, but the morally maybe not correct character anymore when he's accepted that he is the Harkonnen and the Atreides, when he shows up to that war council and he starts going into his like rousing war speech of how he's the king from the outer world and he will lead us. I think they did such a good job, I think, again, of trying to show this isn't the same person, and he's using everything he can to now control these people and use them as the dagger of revenge that he wants for, to get his father's revenge at this point. For it seems almost like he's almost forgotten what he told Johnny, where he wants to free Arrakis for the Fremen, and he's really singularly mindedly focused on revenge now. Which is a similar plot point to this guy that did a very similar thing named Anakin Skywalker, who, as we all know, was the original.
Thanks for bringing that back. I'm glad you tied that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Paul's an interesting character because, like Andy was saying, like you root for him so hard in the first one, and then I felt like I was supposed to root for him most of the time in this one, and then yeah, you get to what is it midway or like 3/4 of the way through before he finally.
It's like the last third. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of makes that turn, and like even his mom. I think Jessica like gets, I don't know, after she obviously like that blood whatever they drink is supposed to symbolize something, and I'm not quite sure what, but the fact that both of them get just like nuts after that, it's like what the fuck's happening.
Well, I think that's another big change. Go ahead, Andy.
So it's interesting that you brought the water of life up.
Yeah.
Because it they extract it from the worms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You actually see them extracting it from the worms, and then the spice that's everywhere out in the desert is all that same color where the worms live. So I don't know. I was thinking, like, I saw it with my brother, and we were both thinking like the worms produce the spice with that water of life in a different form. Like the spice is the water of life, just in a different, like,
significantly less potent.
Yes. Yep.
Form. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh,
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically the water of life is like concentrated spice essentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
Directly from the source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hasn't been filtered through trillions of tons of sand.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Ian. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I think another, like, I guess for Jessica, like one of the other differences, I think we talked about some, like with her not being necessarily the one spreading the rumors, is another change is they like Gunnery Halleck the whole time because he's missing. We don't really cover him at all until he shows up in the movie.
Yeah.
But there's bits and pieces of him working with the mercenaries in the books. So they skip the whole time. He thinks Jessica's the one that betrayed the Atreides. He wants to. When he finds out she's alive, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill her," and he's convinced that she's using her powers on Paul to convince him that she's not the betrayer. So I think that's another, like, I think difference. Like, it's she still gets her role as like, they just made her do something else instead of like, she's spreading the rumors instead of the false allegations necessarily of the of being the betrayer. I think they try and keep that character like story arc kind of similar,
Yeah.
like from movie to book, but then picking two different things. Where instead of falsely doing something, she's just actually doing something. I guess.
Okay.
Just like, yeah, again, like how many more minutes am I adding if I have to give Gunnery Halleck talk about how he's getting revenge on this bitch ex-wife of his Duke?
And like honestly, I kind of forgot that like the first movie he just kind of like runs into a fight and then you don't see him the rest of the movie. And then like I feel like I was expecting him to show up in this movie and honestly just kind of forgot. So when he finally shows back up, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy. Totally forgot about that guy." But all the freaking like the way I think it's the Furman, I think the way they fought, like the guerrilla style of the fighting, I thought was really, really cool. Like
Yeah,
hiding
that
in the sand and all the stuff like that, the hit and run tactics and all the what I think it was when we saw Gunny when they were attacking that like sandcrawler thing with the magnetic mines, like all that shit was really cool.
I enjoyed that. I just wish they would have shown a little bit of how they had to set that up, like how they got into those positions. That would have been cool to get like just a little insight as to like what they had to do. It didn't have to be like a long thing, like literally 5 seconds on screen showing them like tucking themselves into the sand the night before or something.
Yeah, you do wonder how long they've been sitting there.
Well, because I know, like, in the book, it's brought up, like, the tents and stuff they use, like, when there's a sandstorm, they're just buried under the sand and have to break out, like, each day, almost
Okay.
like they do in the attack scenes. So there's a chance they just were there the night before to, like, rest, and then they're like, okay, it's time to pop out because we knew they were coming here or something.
Yeah.
Because you would just go to somewhere where there's a lot of spice, and guess what? That's where they're going to try and mine the spice.
Yeah.
I want to once again, I believe I did this last time, but also throw it to Stellan Skarsgård. Like, yeah, the effects work on him is meant to be gross. It's meant to be all that, but man, that dude is fantastic. Pretty much start to finish in both of these movies, and that's also another thing I would throw to Austin Butler. Is that Austin Butler generally doesn't sound that way, but in this movie, he sounded like he should be Stellan's son.
Wasn't that incredible how he changed his voice patterns and even tone and like grittiness to undoubtedly mimic Stellan. You know, just how he normally like his
His cadence, yeah.
thank you, cadence. I couldn't come up with it. It was an incredible transformation, I thought.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that when Austin was going to start talking as this character. I didn't know what to expect, but when I heard it, I was like, "Holy shit!" Now I'm impressed.
Yeah, because when they're
Like
talking
that-
to each other, I'm like, wait, now which one's talking? Because like they sound like almost identical.
No, he definitely needs an Oscar nom for I feel like this role. It was phenomenal the way he played it.
Even
Yep.
the like I'll toss out for the makeup too, because I could have sworn he shaved his head, but I don't think he did. I think that's a bald cap.
I couldn't tell you
Because I
one
think he
way
had
or
to
the
film
other.
that bikers movie around the same time, so he
Was
obviously
that a
had hair
wig?
for that. I don't know. I thought it was the other way, where he kept his hair for that
Yeah,
movie, and
probably.
then bald capped it for this one.
I was just
That
being
makes sense,
contrarian.
His marketability, you would do that, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, it also grows your marketability. You're willing to shave your head for a role, you know.
true.
Another character that sort of had a turn, in my opinion, was Batista's character. Was
Oh, yeah.
such a badass in the first one that like no one wanted to even stand against him, and in this one he seemed really cowardly.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the difference in him being ready to go to battle and taking part in battle versus his character being asked to think. And as soon as his character needed to think, it failed. Like he would fail anytime he had to use his brain to do something as opposed to his brawn. And he was just a repeated failure in that sense. Like if he had to actively think, he just wasn't going to be able to do it.
And I think that's something these adaptations don't touch on as much the overall politics of the Duneverse. But like
Duneverse.
the plan from the beginning for the Baron Harkonnen was for Fade Wrath to take over Austin Butler's character to lead Dune. So he puts Beast Rabin to Dave, the Animal Batista's character, in charge to fail. He wants him to fail, but he also wants him to squeeze the planet as much as he can to really push the Fremen to their breaking point. That way, when he replaces him, it feels like, oh man, this is so much nicer. They're only stabbing us once a day. Isn't that sweet, guys? Aren't we so thankful for this change? So that's like kind of the overall plan, and it's, I think, like Mike said, it's not like the Beast Rabbit's not like necessarily just stupid, but he is not fit for the political game. You know, he's not suited to that realm. You know, like how Robert E. Lee shouldn't have been a general because he kind of sucked at it, but he was like okay at scouting. You know, to take one example from the Civil War, like he put a man in this station beyond his capability.
They started the first movie and all of that with like the whole political game is happening. They don't really directly say it, but you know what I mean. It's constantly said by like Gunny saying like, "Do you understand what's happening here?" You know what I mean, like in terms of like referring to the political maneuvers being made against the Atreides in order to, I guess, just bring them down and subjugate the Fremen further. They instituted this whole scheming political plan, and yeah, they didn't play into that as much here, as far as in like this specific instance, explaining about Batista's character here in terms of what was going on politically. Like, I feel like they mentioned it at the start of the first film, and they actually kind of laid it out more so people could understand. But I feel like because this was more of a side plot for, like, the fall of that character was a side plot crucial to the main plot, but it was tangential, so they didn't spend as much time explaining exactly what occurred. And it would have been maybe more clear if they again had more time. Like, how long do you want to make this movie?
And I think again, it's one of those things where it's not necessary to know that he's being set up to fail so much as that he does fail. Like I think as long as you get that across, as long as that happens, the story still gets told. It's just maybe not as full story as you want or something. But I think it still gets the job done to move us to the next plot point.
And it's not like the Baron needs an extra evil add-on. Like we get it. He's evil. So yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Like it's doesn't offer value to
Ian, refresh my memory. Was Austin Butler's character another son or nephew?
Another nephew. His youngest nephew. I forget if it's brought up in the movies, but they don't actually let the Baron have any male heirs.
Okay. So is Austin Butler meant to be like the favorite nephew?
Yes.
Okay.
And Baron Gesserit mentioned was like their backup to. He was originally Paul wasn't supposed to be a boy, it was supposed to be a girl. And he was supposed to then mate with Fade Wrath, which would then create the Messiah, the Kiswach Hedrick. But because Jessica made it a boy, it was like, here's our two options for it.
Gotcha.
Because
okay.
They do use the line plan within plans. Like, that's the Baron Gesserit, is everything's a plan, and then that plan is itself a plan to a different plan.
Yeah.
And that line probably comes up 40 million times in the book, but I think they only use it once in the movie.
Okay.
So, some restraint.
No, because I think the point I was going to make is when you're talking about trying to have Batista's character kind of push the Fremen to the breaking point, only to have Austin Butler's character come in and like take over and be like, oh look, he did it. It reminds me of the arena fight that they had where they have him fight against the drugged people to make it easier and make it look like he's doing well, but really it's all set up from the beginning.
And then the one undrugged person is twofold. One, to test him to make sure he can actually defend himself in a fair-ish fight, and then two, to then impress all of those people in the audience when he takes off the shield and is gonna actually risk his life in a fight.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a plan within a plan.
So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on Leah Seydoux's character, because I feel like she had important shit to do, but we didn't get a lot of time with her. I didn't think.
Who's this?
She's one of the Bene Gesserit. She's the one that we find out has a kid with Austin Butler's character.
Yeah. Lady Margot Fenrig. So this is another thing that got cut. In the book, she has a husband that was also a candidate to be the Kisrat Chadrick, but wasn't. And he's a eunuch. So he can't give her a child. So that's all. His character's completely cut. So they do have her fulfill the same role where she's basically a Bene Gesserit spy to see can we control Fade Ruth, Austin Butler's character. Can we control him? Because the Baron Gesserit, the Emperor, and the other cut faction, the Spacer Guild, are all vying for the ultimate power of who actually runs the universe. And that's kind of the Baron Gesserit's overall plan, is to be in control of the throne. And so that's kind of what Leia Sedo's character, Lady Margot Fenric, is there to do, is that first prove we can control this guy if he does end up on the throne, and two, if he dies, we've secured the bloodline by having his child. So that way we can try again if we need to.
Okay. So I guess, like, ultimately, if the Bene Gesserit's trying to control someone that's eventually going to be the Emperor to can then control, like, the universe, galaxy, all the factions or whatever, I guess Paul's just kind of throwing a wrench into that whole thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Because, Paul's not only throwing a plan into it, they don't kind of know exactly what he's been up to. So they don't know that he's taken the water of life and has become the Kiswa Chaderic, and that he is an abomination, and they don't know a lot about that. So not only is he throwing a wrench in it, he's kind of fucking up a lot of it by taking over, because he's now he knows the plan now, because him and his mom have all the back memories now. He knows that, and he can see the future. He's really fucking I think they say it's 60 generations of their breeding program. So yeah, they're not a fan of his. That might come up in another movie. Let's find out. And I think that's another really cool thing is real quick, that Princess Irulan, Florence Pugh's character. She has that diary, and that's how each chapter in the book starts, is with an excerpt from the diary. So I thought it was cool they kept that kind of in the film.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't feel like she had a lot to do either. Like, if she felt of someone importance, obviously, because she's the daughter of the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess expected more screen time from her too.
I mean, that does end up being her role, is that she's just a pawn either for Paul or the Bene Gesserit to play. The movie tries to kind of build her up as, Christopher Walken calls, my most impressive daughter, and says you'll make a fierce empress. But at the end of the day, she's really just another pawn.
Yeah.
Because everyone really, kind of is. I think it's another thing with Dune, is everyone thinks they're the main character, but really, the main character isn't even born yet.
So a plot point that sort of confused me during the movie was Paul, when he was out in the desert several times, thought he saw Jamis again and was almost like having visions of Jamis.
He has like a straight up conversation with him, I think, at one point, doesn't he?
Yeah, he talks to him. He understands.
But that I thought that I viewed that as a backlash. Like
it's kind of just the spice fucking with Paul, because he's not used to having any spice really. So it's like messing just with his Baron Gesserit training, so he's getting the weird visions and stuff. So it's supposed to be kind of like haunting him, like because he killed this man. If you recall from the first film, he cries over it, and they kind of use it as he spills water for the dead, but like it really hangs up on Paul because he doesn't want to kill people at that point. He's still kind of that innocent. So I think that's what it's doing, is he's being warned by Jamis, because we learn about those visions of the future with they don't use the word, I noticed, jihad, that's going to start in his name that kills billions. They use holy war instead because politics, I'm guessing. But I think that's what it is Jamis is just reminding him of a life he's already taken, and kind of an innocent life too. Like, Jamis didn't do anything necessarily to him. He just challenged him because he thinks he's a spy. So I think that's kind of why the Jamis stuff comes up repeatedly, is it's just mentally affecting Paul, like what's happening. Like almost like a PTSD thing.
I thought in the first film, wasn't Paul having visions of Jamis, like, teaching him at one point? Like, I thought there was like visions of a possible future where he was instead of like seeing visions of Zendaya, he was seeing visions of him, teaching him and helping him through the ways. So like even in the first one, that was surprising to me when it looked like the movie was setting up, oh, this guy's supposed to be a friend, and then he kills him by the end of the movie.
That was, I think, again, I think we might have actually talked about this when we did the first Dune movies, that the movie trying to set up, there's multiple paths, and Paul is trying to find the one where he's still alive at the end.
Okay.
And he mentions it briefly, like, during the movie after he takes the water of life and is talking to his, yeah, Andy's doing the hand thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's a narrow path where we do this. And but he knows, like, it's gonna suck. And that's, that's, I think, kind of, if they made another one, I think they'd talk about that more, like, what does that path entail? Like, what is Paul so afraid of? Is he afraid just of this jihad, or is there other issues with it where maybe he has to make choices he doesn't want to make?
I feel like he's almost forced to do the things that he wanted to do, and you could tell that he didn't want to do it because he kept looking at Zendaya when the stuff was happening, and that's that narrow path that he was talking about. He doesn't want to do it, but the only way he knows that he can survive is by doing this. So he's 100% forced into doing it. Which brings into question, like free will and destiny kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you can see the future, destiny is not as exciting anymore. So it's one of those things for him, I think, there, like what you're saying, he's seeing the future and that this is the path he must take. And, that's painting him. And, I feel like there's that temptation to, like, look at the scenarios and say, why doesn't he just use his power over the voice to command more things to happen the way that he would want? And I don't necessarily have the answer to that. I bet Ian does.
Because you can't. You can't. It's not like literally mind control. It's forceful suggestion. So there is a limit to it, and especially because when he's there at the end, doing it, there's still the headmaster. I forget the technical term. The Reverend Mother Mahayam, that Charlotte Rampling, the head Reverend Mother.
Yeah.
Like, he can't force her to do a whole lot. Like, still, like, she's much more well trained than him. Has been doing this for a long time. Plus so he can only go so far. So I think that's part of it there. And I think part of him looking, like Andy said, constantly as Zendaya, as he tries to say it to her right before this scene where he's gonna fight Fade and then negotiate with the Emperor, where he's like, I will always love you until I stop breathing, trying to say, I have to do this or I'll stop breathing. Like, I'm trying to thread the needle here, and I'm only saying I'm taking this lady as my wife because that's the only way I sit on the throne and we have a future together.
I see. To me, it's not so much him on the throne; it's more of him just breathing. Like, I feel like that's the
they're
path,
one and the same, though.
Yeah,
it's just his way of breathing and living, kind of, and he has to end up on the throne for that to occur. If he doesn't, then he's dead.
He's
kind of like
right.
Like, I think if Anakin doesn't fight Obi-Wan, he's dead because Palpatine would just kill him. Like, he's kind of forced into it at a certain point because of, like, the other stuff. That's why it was such a good movie for them to rip off to make Dune.
He was forced into it.
Isn't that the usurper's conundrum as well, where to not fight, the current ruling power will hunt you down and kill you, and if you do fight and take over the throne, those who want to take your power will try to hunt you down and kill you. No matter what, you're being hunted down if you're put in a situation where you are the one chosen by the people to take the throne from those in power.
You're forced into conflict one way or the other.
Yeah, like, you're either getting hunted or you're hunting, and it's not good. So yeah, Paul gets kind of put into that, and then also, like I said, being able to have those visions of the future really complicates that into knowing, like, this is how I can get what I really want for the universe.
Speaking of the ending there with the negotiation with the Emperor and the Reverend Mother, when I had first seen it, and Paul uses the voice on them to, like, tell them to, like, be silent, and they reject, and the Reverend Mother calls him an abomination. When I saw that in the theater the first time, I was like, fuck, is this on Max? I need to watch that again. That's like a lot of the reason I went to see it a second time was for this like 10 seconds of movie. Like that's how
Yeah.
much I really enjoyed that. It's the culmination of Paul's whole journey, him using the voice on the oppressors of the galaxy essentially. And him maybe not being right to do it. It's like then when you start thinking about it. It's one of those almost I want to say perfect stories, I think. It takes in everything and thematically and theme wise there's so much to talk about and I think learn from it and steal from it and iterate on it. It's just, the perfect, I think, telling of the hero's journey.
And
I
I
think
thought
that's why Dune resonates.
Ian, just for context, how many books are in the series and what have you read?
You just want, if we're talking just the Frank Herbert books, 6.
Okay.
but then his son started writing as
Wrote.
well.
His son wrote 2 sequels, which were based on the outline of Dune 7. So he turned it into 2 sequels, and then he's written like 5 prequel books too. Co-written.
Wow. Okay.
He splits
I
it
realized
with
there
this
was
other
that
guy.
much.
I've read the first 5 Frank books, and I'm in the start of the 6th. They get real fucking weird.
I
Yeah.
feel like I've heard that not even just from you, just from the internet in general.
There's a lot of
deeper
weird
you-
sex shit going on. It's
I didn't
fucking
hear weird sex shit. I just heard
Oh,
weird
it's
shit. But
the Bene Gesserit get freaky weird.
There's
Okay.
there's a offshoot of the Baron Gesserit that show up where instead of using the voice, they use tantric sex to control you,
that makes sense. Yeah.
and they counter it by they train a guy to be better at sex.
But part 1 and part 2.
Yeah,
movies, right?
and that guy is a clone
Okay.
of a character that was in the first movie.
Oh,
Okay.
is it Jason Momoa's character?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they clone him over because there's a 5,000 year time jump between books 3 and 4.
Jesus.
And they clone Momoa that whole time, just new clones and new clones and new clones.
So really,
You know
we've just
Momoa's
fast
just
forwarded
waiting for that
modern
phone
human.
call.
Yeah, we just like fast forwarded modern human women, and they chose Jason Momoa to go and clone as a sex slave.
Yeah.
Like
that's
what that
pretty
sounds like.
much that's pretty much the plot of Dune 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it gets real freaky weird. Yeah,
But I mean, the movies we've seen up to this point, parts 1 and 2, that's only what, the first book?
that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
and
All right.
Dennis Villeneuve said the third movie would be the second book entirely. Well,
Okay.
we'll see what happens, but his plan
Yeah.
is for the whole second book to be the third movie, and then he'd be done.
Okay.
Which
Because
I think
that's the end of a narrative arc in the series.
And I think that's a good stepping off point for it as well, because like you said, like we just said, it gets really weird and probably, to the point where the story is so based in things too sexual that Hollywood really wouldn't be comfortable exploring in that context.
You would have to change it to something else, like that's not sex, basically.
Yeah, like it gets that weird. I haven't read all of them. I read the first book, but I've heard the stories from people who are big fans.
There's implied
And-
bestiality that comes up. It gets real fucking weird.
I mean, are they still doing? They were supposed to be doing a Bene Gesserit show for HBO Max, right? Or Max or whatever it's
I
called,
thought
right?
didn't that get
That-
canceled?
I don't
may have.
remember. I don't.
I thought last I heard they were still doing one, but if I'm behind on the news, Andy, maybe it did get canceled, but I don't know.
Or maybe it got pushed back.
Maybe. But I'm just thinking, like, if HBO loves their Game of Thrones type shit, then sex in a Bene Gesserit show, HBO, I think, could do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that makes more sense as a medium for it than a movie. Like
it's- yeah.
HBO series are, their own
It's still
thing
coming
sometimes.
End of this year.
So
Oh, it actually
There
has a
you go.
release date.
Yeah. 10,000 years before the movie, though.
That was before they did all the sex stuff, huh?
I mean, God knows what they were doing then, though.
I was gonna say I feel like it's different sex stuff that's
Well,
gonna
because-
end up explored.
Like Mike's saying, like, they don't do the weird tantric sex mind control domination thing, but, like, they rape a character in this movie. Like, that
Yeah.
just happened.
Yeah.
No one really questioned it. I haven't seen many people in their discourse of the movie say, "Oh, Austin Butler's character was raped."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
you know.
There's that, and there's like, the whole talking to the baby in the womb thing. As far as I understand, that gets a lot weirder in ways in the further books, and yeah, HBO is well suited for it.
And I think this, I don't know if this is what you're going to go, Brian, but I think this might be part of the reason you also had just time issues is during the books, like from where we're at with when he joins Stilgar Siege, kind of at the beginning of this movie, the end of the first one, to the end of this movie, there's a 6-year gap. Like there's a time jump. 6 years pass. They dude, that does not happen in the film because there's not a 6-year human gestation period in the Duneverse.
Yeah.
It's still
Well, I guess-
9 months. So that's
Kinda
where I
right.
think part of it too kind of is it fucked with me because I'm like, why is she still pregnant? There's multiple times where I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Because the whole time I'm like, how the fuck are they gonna film this kid? To me, that was more unfilmable than the worms because this kid, like I think they established in the movie with it talking, when it's born, it has all of the memories of multiple hundreds of adults. It's literally going to be an adult 0-year-old out the womb. Like, it's not going to be like a baby in any sense of the word. And that's really when the word abomination starts coming out more because it's something so different than anything else. And this whole time I'm waiting for it never happens because she's still pregnant at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that threw me off time-wise a lot until, like, I think when Paul takes the water of life, I'm like, oh, they're just not going to have it happen. She's just going to be pregnant.
So
it turns into Stewie from Family Guy?
Except they don't pretend that they don't understand him randomly.
Ian, maybe you can just explain it to me, or just definitively one way or the other. Is Rebecca Ferguson's character actually talking to her unborn child, or is she just nuts and thinks she's talking to her child?
She's literally talking to her.
Okay. Because
And they both have all the
feel
same
like
memories.
I feel like it could go either way, and I wasn't sure which way the movie was
Not
going.
only is she talking to her, the child knows, like, the sex she had with Duke Leto. Like, the child, that fetus knows everything. You know what I mean? Like, that fetus is an adult, but a fetus. Like,
Okay.
not in, like, the political way, but, like, literally has all of the memories and thoughts of, God knows, like, 60-plus generations, you know?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, it's very hard to think about, and yeah, it's super fucked up, and maybe not the best idea. I don't know, maybe they'll explore that in a future book or movie, I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. At
I'd
this
like
point,
to
they went with it, so.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Timothy Chalamet's role in this.
Go for it.
I thought he did such an excellent job that in the moments that he was intense, it was such a surprise that it actually like jolted me a couple of times in his deliveries that I didn't expect him to be able to. Just the style of his acting, I never expected that from him to happen. So it was like jolting when it did.
Yeah.
Particularly when he's talking to his mom about her trying to set him up to be the Messiah and him like sort of rejecting it very loudly
Oh,
at one point.
that scene when he yells, "That's not hope," like shook me.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it's,
yeah, it just like
so
it rattled me. I was like,
powerful.
"Whoa, I did not expect him to just go
Like-
from he went from 0 to 80 in like 0.1
Yeah, they did
seconds, you know?"
such a good job, like, getting him there. Like, just, that was perfect, I thought, you know.
And
Him
then his
kind of just rejecting everything.
And then his final speech was just awe-inspiring. And then I thought the culmination was in the boot stomp for the Emperor to sort of kiss his ring. Was just, I don't know how they got that boot stomp to like reverberate, but just like I felt like the whole digital like Dolby Cinema was just like, and I was like, holy shit.
So I think like that to me like reminded me of there's that scene in Game of Thrones where I forget what's the kid's name that becomes king,
Joffrey.
little blonde boy, Joffrey, and at one point he says I'm king, and then his his granddad's like king doesn't say he's king, and that's kind of what Paul's doing. He's not asking him to kiss the ring. It's do it or I'm gonna kill you, and I don't have to say it because I'm the emperor now, And I loved that the way, like Andy said, that boot stomp. It felt like the most powerful man in the literal world, which it was.
Yeah,
Was
it really
telling
did.
you to
It
do
just-
something in the most low key way that person could do.
Yeah, it made me immediately like, okay, if someone had a ring in front of me, I'd be like, I'm gonna kiss it. Just like,
Tell me what to do, Timothy Chalamet.
yeah,
Which brought up something that like I wanted to mention was that I felt that like Christopher Walken was underutilized here. Like I feel like I really don't remember how significant a role he plays in the book, like how much they could have given him to do, but it was just like, man, there was opportunities here for him to do more. He did great if that's exactly how the character's meant to be portrayed, which I think it is. I think he nailed it. It's just, for those laughs, there could have been one walk-in moment, we could have got something. little nod to something.
Like
I mean,
I said,
that
I think
is
all the laughs came from Harvey or Bardem.
That's the thing. They had it. They relied on him to carry. Like anytime they were like, "We need to lighten this up," that was his job. They
Yeah.
gave
He
him
did it
all
in
of the
such
lines.
fun ways, just so subtle about all of it all the time. Just, I mean, they didn't have to tell these overt jokes. He felt like, did you ever meet like one of your dad's friends when you were a kid that would like, the like your dad's friend that would tell you dirty jokes kind of thing? He had that kind of weird vibe, like that, not weird, but like that kind of like, I don't know,
like
like
for
not
me, I think-
fatherly, but like older guy that knows you vibe that tells you
feel
jokes.
like
I don't know.
the two biggest laugh lines were the scene where he's saying in the Fremen language that Paul Muad'Dib is so humble he won't even admit that he's the fucking Messiah.
That's
That
the one I
proves
remember.
he's the
Yeah.
Messiah. I think that got the biggest laugh both times I saw it. And like it's like that's the thing though. Like all of his laughs are just almost in how much he believes.
Yeah.
Like how much he is the cause, even if Paul rejects it to his face multiple times, and he says that doesn't matter because I believe. And that's what's
Yeah.
important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes into the whole thing, like with I think Zendaya's issue with an outsider leading the Fremen, but then you have people like Stilgar that think Paul was special. He was sent here to do this. So who cares if he's an outsider? He is now one of us, and is the chosen one.
Yeah.
The power of propaganda.
Yeah. I guess we'll maybe start to wrap it up. You guys, anything final thoughts that you want to get out for
I
this
guess
one?
I had mentioned at the top, like I had an issue with Zendaya. And it was specifically really one scene, and it's when they're getting ready to go to attack the Sardaukar, and she's packing up her bag, and Jessica comes in to talk to her, and she basically says, good luck, and then Zendaya replies, "I'd say the same to you, but you've already won your battle." It just delivered in me. It took me out of it. I really that scene, especially that latter half from Zendaya, I was like, she's acting. I don't know, like that specific part. Everything else, I thought she was like good, not great, but good in. But that specific scene, I was just like, oh, it was the low point for me across these two movies.
Okay.
So that's why it doesn't get an 11.
Just a flat out 10 out of 10.
Yep, it's got to deal with it. Sorry,
All right.
guys.
Are we reviewing? Are we putting numbers on it, or are we just?
I mean, I was going to let you guys get any final thoughts out first, but yeah, we'll go ahead on
okay.
the ratings.
Like I said, I think it's a very special movie. Like the first one came out at a really weird time, I think, for everyone. And I think this one also came out in a weird time where you have a very obvious Fremen is really close to Freeman. I don't know if they put any thought into that. And, using a lot of Arabic words. And they show that Steech, after the bombing by Fade, the Fade, Austin Butler's character bombs it, and they show like a child bleeding down the face and stuff. And you wonder like how much more impactful that scene could have been if like what's happening in Palestine isn't happening right now. Like I've seen videos and stuff of kids that look like that kid like actually being killed and stuff. And that was one thing that hit on me on that in the movie at that point. I'm like, there's parallels there of this, people being attacked against, an oppressor and imperial power. And how much does that still work when that's like what's in the news that day, And think they, because they don't dwell on that for the story, but I think that's just sitting there in the cinema thinking about it. Just how do you portray something so horrific? And it's almost you can't, because
Yeah.
you get an NC-17,
Things get a little bit too real. Andy, any final thoughts before we get to ratings?
I guess there is one final thought. They keep mentioning this prophecy, and I don't know if I forgot about this from Dune 1, but it would have been cool to see like a little bit of an explanation as to what the Freemen actually believe is the prophecy. As far as I know, the only thing that we ever get is the one scene where they show the inside of what do you keep calling it? It's the Stitch?
The siege, yeah.
Siege. And they actually show like the worm with somebody on top of it, in the sunlight, almost like hieroglyphics on the wall. But you never actually know. They only thing about the prophecy that we know is what they keep telling us, which are only like little blurbs. So I don't know. I thought it would have been a cool callback to actually like have like, I don't know, one of the Reverend Mothers like, hey, this is the thing that they believe.
Like part of that's on purpose because like they bring up how it's all Baron Jesuit propaganda, and they spread that to all the worlds, and they're all kind of similar. So if you end up on the worlds, you kind of know what to say to blend in religion wise. So I think that's part of why they didn't go into too much detail, is because there isn't a lot of detail, because it's supposed to be like a fill in the blank kind of thing. But I think overall, like the main thing with the religion is Shai Hulud is like the worm, the biggest worm, the best worm that spawned all the other worms. Is kind of like the god, and through him he'll deliver this boy from the outer world, Paul, that'll make the planet green again, and that's what they're saving all that water for. Like that pool of water they returned to Jameis. Each stage has one of those giant pools, and eventually they'll all have enough water to turn Dune, Arrakis, from sand world into a green world.
Yeah, all right.
And that's what the prophecy is. Like that's
The Green Paradise that he's talking
yeah.
about?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. Basically make it into a modern Eden.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of lost on me too.
But yeah, that's why they don't cover it that much, because there isn't really a thing there,
Gotcha.
It's just fill in the blank, dude. Like fill in, whatever gets Paul to the emperorship, that's what the religion is, kind of.
Andy, you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Mike, last call.
I don't got nothing.
Okay. Then we'll go around the horn for ratings out of 10 for Dune Part 2. Ian, I know you're just chomping at the bit for this one, so out of 10, what are you giving Dune Part 2?
Now, this is really tough for me. I take my role as a movie reviewer very seriously, as everyone knows from the show. I have the only person as part of this podcast group that has ever correctly rated a Ninja Turtles movie.
Don't even fucking know.
I, of course, give this my highest rating of a 10.
I thought you were going to say like 9.75 or some shit, just to be a dick.
I give this 5 turtles out of 10. That's a 20, I think.
Mike, out of 10, what are you giving Dune Part 2?
I feel like for that Turtles line, I need to bring down the show's average a little bit on this.
Yeah, on the turtles, right.
I'm going to go with a 3.
Wow, way down.
I'm kidding. Of course, paired with the first movie, I'd say combined it's a 10. On its own, I'll say each one at this point for me be like a 9.5. But, one cohesive unit, I'll call them a 10.
Yeah.
So do what you will with that.
Okay. Andy, out of 10?
I was going to give it a 9.5.
Okay. Yeah, I'm up with these guys. I think 9 out of 10 for me for this one. It's still, the editing for me is still like my biggest hang up in some of those transitions and stuff. And I definitely feel like I need to see it again. I just don't know how soon. I obviously didn't get to fit in a second viewing before the rating. And before
what you could
recording
do?
and stuff. What?
You could read the book.
I could do that, but I read very slowly.
It's only 945 pages.
Yeah, that's a lot for me.
In small print.
Maybe someday, but probably not anytime soon.
Yeah, no.
I'll put it on the back burner with everything else I never get to.
You won't read those High Republic books. You're not going to read this.
I know the High Republic books take precedent over Dune right now, and I don't know how soon I'll even get to those. So
Do you own them?
that's why I own one or two,
Okay.
and I'm
I
about
think we
halfway
talked
through
about
one
it
of them.
before. Like I owned the first one, and you owned the second and third, or something, and we were gonna
Something.
Book
read them and
swap.
start swapping. Yeah, like it was something like that, and I think neither one of us started actually reading yet.
I started reading the one that I know that I have. Like I said, I don't remember if I have one or two, but one of them that I have, I started reading during summer last year and still haven't finished it.
You got to go. What I did, the read Dune. I've read Dune twice now at a pool in Vegas. So I would suggest that.
Well, if that's the place to do it, I mean, I guess that's what we got to do.
I've actually read I've read 3 Dune books at pools in Vegas.
I guess I always assume when you said you read Dune, I always imagine
no.
you're listening to it.
Oh no, I bet there's someone that's really good at reading Dune. I don't know who does the audiobooks. I'm hoping they re-record it, but I'm now curious.
Christopher
Because-
Walken.
Him, like, honestly, I kind of want Chalamet. Like, if they could get him to read the
yeah.
books,
The
he would
intensity.
do a really good
yeah.
job. And if we just
Yeah.
want like a random poll, Matt Berry, the English comedian guy.
Yeah,
because
he's
Oh, God.
hilarious.
he literally has a character that does that as a job in one of his series.
Yeah.
So I'd love that. Stephen Toast, big ups.
or the funny guy from Dune 2. I can't remember his name all of a sudden.
Yes, Stogar, Javier Bardem.
Yeah, Harvey R.
Yeah, because he could do the accent that make it feel real. Because he was in the
Then he-
movie.
And you got to have a Gilbert Gottfried cut. Just,
Is he alive?
No, I don't think so.
I'm unsure. Honestly, I'm not up on my Gottfried.
I think he passed.
I mean, he would be pretty old if he hadn't. So yeah,
That's
that
when
makes
it's going to
sense.
be AI doing Gilbert Gottfried.
I was wondering, like, are we doing that? He died 2 years ago. Good job,
There we go.
everyone. We killed
AI
him.
for the rescue.
Dang it.
All right. I think that's it for us. If you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to give us a share on social media. Make sure to follow or subscribe to keep up with the show. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Amazon. Hopefully anywhere you're listening to podcasts, you can find us. Feel free to find us on Facebook. Search Bry Guy and Super Friends or go to facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. You can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions there. Like I said, the post for the 300th episode is up there if you want to watch the video. You can hit us up through email, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. It's an email address that's valid. It's working. I don't ever check it.
How do you know
hit
it's
us up.
working then?
Well, they haven't asked me. Well, that's true. I guess I could log in and just see if it's still active. But all right, maybe I'll do that at some point.
Finally.
Between now and the next one, I will try to log in and see what kind of junk email I have in this thing over the
Guess
last
where I'm
year.
sending
Finally.
that file.
Yeah, you're gonna finally see the
don't-
emails that I keep sending you. So this is gonna be awesome.
Bullshit. There's nothing in there from you.
You got like 500 questions in there.
if that's the case, I swear to God, I will talk about it on the next episode. But
You guys talk about tasting the
I-
goods more.
no, dear God, no. Hit us up on Twitter at BG Super Friends. That is definitely active. Andy was tagging me in that one for promoting the 300th, so I know it's active because I was getting notifications for that. So it's still working on a website that I no longer want to use. Hit us up on Twitch if you still want to follow me there. It's Jedi Bry Guy. Again, that's where we'll do any other live shows we do. Any other streams that I do will be done there. It's just another way to kind of keep up with us in the show. And I guess that's it. On behalf of Andy, Ian, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time.